Hello and welcome to the Kickbutt tutorial on how to use the sound system with the iPad. Right here was the typical screen that comes up when you first fire up the iPad program for the X32 system. On the top here, the section up here on the top gets you to the different groups of the mixing board. For example, this first block is channels 1 through 8. The second block is channels 9 through 16, 17 through 24, 25 through 32. And then you get to the auxiliary inputs there, and your effects inputs, your buses for your monitors, and your main outputs. Okay. Now, for most users, channels 1 through 8 will probably be all that you'll need, and I have them set up to where channels 1, 2, 3, and 4 are kind of tweaked out for vocals, and you can see they're labeled. It says Vocal 1, Vox 1, Vox 2, Vox 3, Vox 4. Then the second 4 channels are DI inputs, where you can use them for you can connect a direct box to it, to connect an acoustic guitar, a keyboard, or what have you. You could actually plug a microphone in there too if you need an extra mic. It wouldn't really matter. And then on channel 13, 14, 15, and 16 are set up as stereo channels for playback. For like if you have a DJ, for example, that has a stereo output off as a DJ mixer, or another iPod playback, they would be set up here, and you can see that they're grouped together. Both channels move up and down together. Oops, there, like that. Okay, and that makes it a lot easier, so you don't have to deal with two separate settings. They automatically move at the same time together. Okay, now when you're on, let's say, channel 1, you got a microphone on channel 1. This is your volume control, obviously, for your the volume of the mic. And right there where it comes up is a pretty nominal setting, -5 dB. Is usually pretty good. At 0 dB right there is pretty hot. You can go a little hotter if you needed to, but it's that's pretty hot mic right there. Of course, when you first turn on the system, the mic should be muted already. Whenever you plug in a microphone or unplug the microphone, you want to make sure the channel is muted, so you don't get a pop when you plug it into the mixer. Also, to get sound through the monitors, there's a button here that says Send on Faders. You hit that button, and now it shows you all the auxiliary settings, all the sends. We have 3 monitors on stage. If you're standing on the stage facing the crowd, on the right hand side, which would be stage right, you have monitor 1 or mix 1. The center monitor is mix 2, and the one onto your left, stage left, is mix 3, monitor 3. And as you push these buttons here in the top, 1, 2, and 3, those are the settings that affect that particular monitor. For instance, I'm on channel 1 right now. For monitor mix 1, this shows me all the levels of each microphone that are going to that monitor. So let's say you have a singer standing right in front of monitor 1 and they can't hear themselves. Well, you turn this microphone up on monitor 1. But if they also want a little bit of the other singers, you can bring those in too as well, and those will all come out of monitor 1. Now the same thing applies if you go over to mix 2. Now these are all the settings for mix 2, whatever they want in there. These would be the settings. And if you have to, for example, go send something from the playback channels on another, like on channel 16, for example, you just simply hit that group selection, and now we have the playback settings here, and you can send that, and they're still grouped. You can send that to the monitors as well, and you're still on sends on fader. You're still in monitor mode. Now, Now don't forget to come back to the front of house mix. You have to disengage send on faders. Now you're back at the regular setting, and now this controls the volume for that the people hear, the audience hears. Okay. Now to adjust the EQing or anything of each particular channel, you just click on the yellow part right there, and this shows up, and that's your preamp. Much like a regular mixing board, you have your gain control and some other parameters in here you really don't need to mess with. I've kind of preset some things for everyone, so you don't have to go through this every single time. I have the low cut engaged on the vocal mics to kind of cut down on the rumbling, and not unless you're gonna have Barry White up there singing. There's no reason to have this extra low end coming out of your microphones. It just makes rumbling noise through the subs, and it just doesn't sound too good. So that's already set. You got the preamp, gate, dynamic, EQ, sends, naming, and preset. The gate is to, well, let me turn that off. Is kind of keeps the channel quiet. You really wouldn't need to mess with that. That's kind of getting involved in the mixing. That's sometimes you use that like if you have a noisy guitar amplifier, like when he's not playing, if it's making a lot of hiss or a buzzing sound that you can't get rid of, you can turn on this gate, and it will. Come on, now it doesn't want to come back on. And see, it engages and it shuts the channel down, and it won't open until it gets input. And you can adjust with this threshold knob here how sensitive you want that to be. Generally for vocals you wouldn't use a gate. I was using this last night and I had a noisy guitar so on that channel, so I had to turn on that gate. The dynamics part of it is basically a compressor. Again, I have those preset on the vocals, and what that does is basically kind of puts a ceiling on the microphone. So if you have someone who sings kind of light, you adjust the volume, where you like it. But if they suddenly sing loudly, or you have another person come up and they really attack the microphone hard, this will kind of help level it out so it doesn't, jump out too loud on the speakers. It's kind of like what a DJ sounds like on the radio. They sound real balanced and blended. It's because they have compressors on their voice. Again, this is just kind of a preset. It's not set real heavy. It's just kind of there, just help smooth things out a little bit. Then you have the EQ section. Again, I've set these presets. There were some problem areas with feedback that I've kind of notched out already. You can feel free to adjust these if you need to. I have all this stored, so I can always recall it back to the way it was. I know every microphone is different, every singer, performer is different, so you might have to make adjustments as you go along. But generally, right out of the box, you should be able to pull up the fader, and it should sound good, already. Then you have your sends, which I kind of went over. It's a lot easier to adjust your sends using sends on fader. You can access it from here too, but it gets kind of complicated. Then there's the naming part, which I've done already also, where you can name the channels. And there's also presets in here that you can use to kind of get you there. Like, let's say you have a bass or female vocals, bass drum, kick, These are kind of presets to help get you to that point. And they already have different things engaged, compressors and gates and stuff that the typical engineer would probably use on that given instrument. Again, that's just a kind of a shortcut to help you go. And I have the very bottom one here, Kickbutt Vox. That's the preset for the EQs for the vocals. So they're stored in there as a backup too. But when you fire up the program, it already comes up already, so you don't have to really worry about them. All right. Now, and to get out of this, you go up here, you hit home, and that'll take you back to the main screen. Okay. Now, a lot of people always ask, how do you turn on the effects? How do you get the reverb? How do you get the delay going? And the biggest mistake I've been seeing people do with the system is they'll jump over here to effects and they'll adjust it from here. Or they'll come over here where it says reverb and delay, and they'll adjust it there. You shouldn't have to ever adjust this part here. These are just the main returns for the effects. In other words, the master level. The proper way to adjust for your effects is back on the individual channel. And we have the effects on. You can go to send on faders. That's how you would access the effects as well. We have effects on channels 13, 14, 15, and 16. Or the sends, I should say, 13, 14, 15, 16. And I have delay on reverb on 14 and delay on 15. And for the most part, that's all most musicians need on their voice or instrument or whatever. And so let's say, for instance, you wanted some reverb on vocal mic 1. So there's vocal mic 1, and just like sends on faders for the monitors, when you select 14, which is your reverb, the faders will reflect what's being sent to the reverb. So if you want, I already have some reverb on the mics here. So that would reflect how much reverb is coming out of the mics. On any particular, like if you want reverb on mic 1 but not mic 2, you would turn that off on mic 2. And then you adjust how much reverb. Usually right around there where they're at is pretty good level. Again, you can adjust it however you like. And this goes for all the channels. If you need to put some reverb on channel 12, for example, you go to the next block and there's channel 12, and then you just add some reverb there. Same thing with delay. That's on 15. There's your settings. Now, if you do this and you don't hear any effects coming out, get out of the send on faders and go over here to bus 9 through 16. You punch on that, and it's probably still muted at the master level, the reverb and delay. So you can unmute those, and then you should start hearing the effects. Now, what I like to do is when I put reverb and effects on a voice while they're singing, in between songs, when they talk to the crowd, if there's echo and reverb happening, they tend to sound kind of jumbled, kind of muddy, because there's too many effects and you can't understand what they're saying. So in between songs, I just mute the masters real quick, and then their microphone's dry, and then you can understand them better when they're addressing the crowd. And the reason I do that is because it's a lot easier just to mute those two buttons than to go to each individual channel and pull them down and pull them back up every time they stop playing. So you just mute them, and that's all there is to it. There's effects 1 and effects 4, which you can use for something else, but right now we don't really have anything assigned to them. That'd be getting more involved if you wanted to do something really heavy. But generally, the reverb and delay should get you going pretty good. Okay, back to home. Okay, and the masters, the main right here, that's your master output. There's the left, right are the main speakers that are hanging from the ceiling, and this main C is the masters for the subs. I had someone the other day text me because he couldn't get the subs working, and they were muted like that. Somebody had muted them and didn't unmute them, so the next guy came in and couldn't figure out why the subs weren't working. Well, that's why, because they were muted right there. So generally, things should... I come in every Sunday to do Smoking and Heard, and I always reload the system back to where it was, and I check, because I know people use it throughout the week and things get changed, and so I try to start it back off again where it was. And like I said, somebody had left that muted, so he was kind of having some problems, and then we talked it through and figured out that's what the problem was. Okay, and speaking of subs, this is how you send the subs to, or how you send any particular microphone to the subs. Not everything is going to the subs, because you don't necessarily have to run every microphone to the subs. Only like a bass guitar, a bass drum, floor tom, toms in general. Anything that's as a bass instrument would go to the subs. You wouldn't want to run the voices. You wouldn't want to run a fiddle or an acoustic guitar to the subwoofer because it doesn't really make any sense. It doesn't reproduce sound that low. So in order to do that, let's say we had a bass drum on channel 1, for example, or actually channel 9 I have set up for bass. You go to this setting here where it says config preamp, and this button here, you notice how it's already engaged, this mono C, that will send the signal to that sub output, and this is the volume. This is how much of it you want it to go to the sub. So you can control each individual instrument, accordingly. So you can, the bass player could be playing, and while they're playing, you can bring this in, and you'll notice the bass will get deeper. You don't necessarily have to turn the low end up here on the EQ, because you'll notice once you kick in that sub, it's going to get a lot bassier. Believe me, you'll hear the low end, and that's how you do it. And you can do that with whatever channel might need. Also, the playback tracks go to the sub as well. Like for music, like if people bring in their iPod or whatever, or a DJ, you want to run it into the subs too, because it has to be full range because they have bass and everything as well. Okay, that's the subs. I did want to mention, going back to the effects, a lot of people will touch on these icons up here. Now these icons, the home button of course brings you here. The detail takes you there, just like if you press any one of these yellow buttons here. Now a lot of people will go to the effects to adjust the effects, and that's not what this is for. This is the setup of the effects. That's already stored in there. Effects 2, which is channel send 14, is the reverb. Effects 3, which is send 15, is your delay. And you shouldn't have to go into there unless you want to adjust the reverb time or the delay time manually. You can. Right now it's just kind of at a general setting. Again, this does not turn the volume up or down of the effects. Okay, you do that back here at the home. You go to send on faders, and you select 14 for reverb or 15 for delay, and that's where you adjust it. So your primary functions are going to be your home page, the details, which is the same as hitting each individual channel, bus 9 through 16. Bus 9 through 16 are your effects, where you can mute them, and I think that's about it. The mains, you shouldn't have to mess with the mains. They're always on. We mute the channels before we unplug them or plug them in, so there's no popping sounds. That's just always a good safety precaution. Oh, one last thing I do remember. Somebody was asking how you can control the volumes for each individual speaker. Like if you want it louder on one side of the room and not on the other side of the room. Well, that's very simple. All you have to do is go to the main over here and see this white and red looking thing here. That's your balance. So you can grab that line and I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but you can pan it to the left or to the right or anywhere in between. And that was just like the balance control on your stereo. It will move the sound from the left to the right. So let's say you only have people on the side of the room where the stage is, and there's nobody on the other side, and you don't want too much sound going that way, you can just pan it to the left, and that should take care of that. But generally it's left in the center. But that's it. That's the tutorial. I hope this helps out. And again, if you have any questions, just ask for Ernie. Contact Ernie on Spoken and Heard Sunday nights, and I'll see if I can correct it. Thanks again. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.